Okay, great. So starting off by introducing us, Lexsynergy guides brands through both traditional and Web3 domain spaces, providing strategic policy, streamlined domain management, and world-class assistance with online brand protection. I would now like to introduce Daniel Greenberg, the host of today's webinar and CEO of Lexsynergy. Daniel is an admitted attorney in the UK and South Africa with over 20 years' experience in trademarks, copyright, and domain names. Joining him, albeit in a limited capacity due to illness, is Marina Robbins. Marina joined the company at the height of the new GLTD program in January 2015 and is our resident TLD and domain blocking expert.
Great. Thanks a lot, Kyle. Marina, I do hope you get better. So Marina has a bit of a cough, so she's going to be in the background supporting me. I'd like to thank everyone that has made the time to attend this webinar. So the domain name block can be a bit of a complex service to understand. So the idea behind this webinar is to get a good understanding. So either if you're a lawyer, you can advise your clients, or if you're a brand owner, you can understand whether a block is relevant for your business. So during today's webinar, we're going to ask the question and answer it. What is a domain block? What are the different blocks? And which block is right for you as a brand owner? And how do you go about verifying your trademark or your rights in order to take out a domain block? We all have questions, so Kyle will be curating this webinar. So if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A function at the top of your screens. I think that's where it is. And we'll answer it straight away, hopefully. If it's more generic, we may push it to the end. It's very important that you ask questions, because if you don't understand something in the beginning, it may affect the subsequent information that we go through as we go through this webinar. So the most basic question there is, what is a domain block? So a domain name block is a brand protection strategy that involves in registering dormant domains to prevent anyone else from registering it. So in layman's terms, for those of you not familiar with domain names, as you can see, Lexsynergy is the trademark. .com is a domain extension. You can also have country codes like .at for Austria, .uk for the United Kingdom. So that's a domain extension. And the second or third level is the actual trademark itself. So that's what you're blocking, is the trademark, as you see there. A better way of explaining it is through the well-known trademark Microsoft. So over here, you can see you can block an identical matching version of that trademark. So there you can see a trademark owner can block Microsoft.games, Microsoft.company, Microsoft.technology. Those are the domain name extensions. There are many more. This is just an example of what a block is. Then there is normally a block plus version, which provides broader protection than the single block. So that would block essentially the identical version as well as variants. So there you can see a common variant would be WW before the trademark, so there's no dot, or it could be a non-Latin script, a script from another language, as well as maybe additional terms, as you can see there, pay Microsoft.business. And where a block is different to what we know as a traditional domain registration is that there's no website associated with it, and there's no who is. And who is essentially a database of the domain name record. So if you have a block, say you take out a block for the trademark Lexsynergy, if you had to search it on a whois database, you would get the statement that you see there. It is a bit small. It does appear quite small on the search itself. So in that respect, you don't own it. So it's technically possible for identical marks to be blocked by several different entities. So say if you have the trademark Delta in the US, and you apply for a block and someone in South America applies for Delta, you will both have that block. And we will deal with the consequences of that in later slides. But it's very important to remember that. It's not like a domain registration where if you register it, you are in fact the owner. That's not the case with a blocking service. So Let's take a step back and discuss also what is a variant. So a variant is essentially a domain that mimics or infringes your trademark using unconventional methods. So over the years, fraudsters have found several new ways to trick people into thinking they're interacting with a legitimate domain or email address. So it's impossible to register every variation out there as a domain name because it's obviously very costly. It's counterproductive because you'll have a large domain name portfolio, and it's really not sustainable. So that is where the blocking plus options come in. And over there you can see some good, some bad PayPal examples. So instead of having the A, there would be a 4, and instead of an L, there would be a 1. So sometimes in a URL, you may not see that because you look at it very quickly, and it could lead to some issues at a later date. There are also various other forms. So here are some examples. So the one would be online, Lexsynergy.com, Lexsynergy-security.com. Another one would be singular and plural versions. As you can see there, Lexsynergy and Lexsynergies.com. Then there's also typographical errors. So that's Lexsynergy, Lexsynergy, I don't know how you'd pronounce it, energy. So these are the variations that you can get with these various blocks. Here's the non-Latin variation. So as you can see here, it's quite deceptive because the L is not from the Latin alphabet. And if you do use it, it looks odd there. We've obviously highlighted it, but in a URL, you may not see that and click onto it. Then there's a more apparent one where they've taken out letters and replaced them with numbers. So an E for a 3. Even similar, Lexsynergy, also misspelling, but sounds similar. And here's another similar sounding version. So hopefully we haven't confused you thus far. So because it's a block, there's no website, as I said in the beginning. So that means if you actually registered a domain name, you could point it to a website. So there you can see the two. On the left-hand side is what a block domain name would look like. On the right-hand side, that would show what a normal registered domain name, if it was forwarded to a site, would look like. Then we get the WHOIS, which I explained to you. It's a database that contains information relating to a domain name, and it would appear as being blocked. But if you had an actual domain name registration, it would have the full details. Obviously, due to GDPR, a lot of the WHOIS information is redacted, but you would see that there's a registrar and technical admin contact. You'd see name server details. That's what essentially allows a domain name to operate. So you'd see all of that. So that's really the difference between the two from a visual perspective. So what are the different blocks? The first one is the most exciting one is in 2020, the adult block was launched, and this was really to protect brands within this high-risk adult entertainment extensions. So by blocking your trademark, a brand owner will have peace of mind knowing that others cannot use their brand in the space, and also not associating themselves with the extension in any way. So it only covers those 4 TLDs that you see on your screen at the moment. Then the DPML was launched in 2013 and covers all domain name extensions managed by a registry known as Identity Digital. They were also formerly known as Donuts, which is actually quite a nice name. And what they've done essentially is they've grown their portfolio over the years. So they own extensions, over 300, and they've instituted a block across their TLDs, and that is called the DPML, or the Domains Protected Marks List. And until now, the DPML has been the largest block available, and therefore the most popular and the most well-known. There are some exceptions, though, of ones that they don't own. So I think .ac, .io, and .sh, those are country codes. So they've added those, but there are very few of those country codes, and not in major countries as well. That brings us to the exciting new launch in the domain name blocking space of the global block, which is the first unified block that spans multiple registries and includes over 500 extensions, so a lot more than the DPML. And the real difference is that it includes a lot of country codes. So the global block is currently in its beta launch, with its official launch being the 29th of February. And the operators of the global block, unlike the DPML, is that they don't own or they don't manage all the TLDs in their block. They've reached out to various registry operators around the world and they've said, do you want to be part of this block so that we can offer this as a bulk blocking service globally? So a lot of countries have signed up, a lot of other blocking services has. So for example, the DPML is included in this global block. So if you go for the global block, you also get the DPML plus more. So that is where you get over 500 domain name extensions. Which block is right for you or for me? When it comes to selecting which blocking program is right for you, it comes down to the scope of protection and the price. So what we're going to look at is how each block compares. First, what we'll do is look at coverage. So in this particular case, we're looking at the 4 adult TLDs that we've shown in previous slides. Then we get the DPML, and this roughly covers 300. So there we've listed a few plus 200 more, but it's essentially 300. There are a whole bunch of them. Then you get the global block, and over here you get over 500. There's 400 plus. We have a complete list of the global block. We've been told not to share it at the moment, I think because they're in the beta phase, but we do have that available. So should you wish to reach out to us, we can provide that at the right time so you can see which TLDs are included or domain name extensions. So the next thing we need to look at is the variant protection, because that's very important. And if you remember in the previous slides, the basic block doesn't cover variants. It's really the plus versions of all the different blocks that really cover variants to a certain extent. Not all of them do, but this table will clearly set it out for you. So as you can see here, the adult block covers similar sounding ones. Then the terms before or after trademarks. So that would be the adult block and the DPML. With that, there's a little bit of an asterisk there, is with the DPML, you're able to select 3 additional variants. So it's not like the adult block, which is kind of unlimited. You would have to go through and determine which are the most commonly squatted marks that you would want to choose. So it could either be a typo or containing your trademark. So for instance, it could be Lexsynergy domains as one word because of our industry. So you would have to select that quite carefully. Then it's singular, plural versions. And once again, that links on the DPML plus side, links to the 3 variants that you have. So it's 3 covering all those options. So it's not 3 for each row that we're going through. And the adult block, they can do the variants, obviously, because there are only 4 TLDs in that particular block. The Global Plus now comes into the picture because there they cover all the non-Latin variations, and that's obviously gives you quite a larger scope of protection. But as you can see, it doesn't cover as much as the DPML from a variation perspective, but from a TLD, it does. And then it's the last number changes, as you can see there. So essentially, if you look at it, the adult block is very comprehensive, but then it's only 4 domains. Then you got the DPML with 300 and the global block with over 500. All programs except for the standard DPML includes block on premium domains. Now, a premium domain is usually a 3-character or domain or a generic term. So we put some generic terms in there, and it can vary depending on what the mark is and the TLD. But essentially, you can then block your those particular marks, normally you would have to pay a premium for those domains. So if you had to register it, it would cost you a lot more than a standard price. But if it forms part of the block, it could save you money because you don't have to spend that by paying a high premium registration fee. So all blocking programs include an auto block feature. So when a block is purchased, if a domain name such as Lexsynergy Domains is already registered by a third party, that domain name will remain valid and registered, and it won't form part of the block. But should that owner of the domain allow it to expire and it's deleted, then that would automatically be snapped up and form part of the blocking service. And this is done by the registry operator themselves. So over time, if people do delete these domains, they would form part of the block. So just remember, if you do take out a block and there are squatters squatting against your particular mark on some domain name extensions, it won't be included in the block. They can't just override it and take the domain name back. But there is that option to get it back should they delete it. Now, block owners may decide that they want to utilize a domain. So if you recall, right in the beginning, if you have a block, you cannot use it for a website, you cannot use it for emails. It's basically a non-resolving, non-functioning block. So it's you can't really use it. But you may decide one day you want to use it, like you want to use Lexsynergy.block or Lexsynergy.domains or Lexsynergy.business. There is a process that you can go through to unblock it. And this is what we're going to go through right now. So for the DPML, you can request, so the example we use is delta.business. So you can request for that particular domain name to be unblocked. In order to unblock it from a DPML perspective, you need a verified registered trademark. This is not a trademark application. This is a trademark that's validated through the Trademark Clearinghouse. The Trademark Clearinghouse is an independent body that validates trademarks from around the world, because if you have a trademark from Ghana or from Australia, they have to know that it's actually really registered. So there's a whole verification process around that. We'll deal with that in subsequent slides, but that's something that we would handle on behalf of our clients. So it's not really something that you need to worry about, but what you need to know is that it has to be a registered trademark. The difference with the global block and the DPML is the global block, if there are multiple owners of blocks on a particular mark. So say I've blocked Delta and I'm in the US and someone's blocked Delta in another country, or even in the US, let's say, they have these multiple blocks on it. In order to unblock it, you would need consensus amongst all the block owners. So that's where it can prove quite difficult. So I know some clients have hinted at, for instance, when they take out the global block, they're thinking of letting some domain names go that are identical matches. The issue there is you don't know if someone else has taken out the global block as well, and you may one day want to register it, and you may not be able to get consensus on that. If your mark is very distinctive and you know you're the only one and you think you'll be the only one, then that should be okay. But just bear that in mind. With the DPML, you can literally get a TMCH and have it unblocked. That also can be a risk with the TMCH, because you could simply register a trademark, for instance, in Switzerland, where you get the registration certificate within a few days or a week or so, and then you could have that validated and then get a domain name unblocked. But obviously, you'd have to go through all those procedures just to do that. And then once that's done, you can register it and use it as you would any normal TLD. The adult block, interestingly, does not allow for unblocking of any domain. So once it's blocked, it's done. And I think they've done that because there's so many variants that they do block, and it's quite comprehensive. So here we have a summary of the protection for each block. So global block covers over 500 TLDs. And we've also listed the plus version, so you can see the difference between the two. And the plus versions, as I've said, includes the premium domains plus other versions. The DPML, over 300 extensions. The plus version includes premiums as well as 3 additional variants. And this is where we'd work with our clients to work out which are the most squatted against or the high risk variants, and those would be the ones that you would choose. And then it has the adult block and adult block plus. So that allows, the plus allows for the variance. Obviously, it comes down to pounds and pence or dollars and cents, and there is a major difference in price. We haven't listed the prices in this webinar. Please reach out to us because there are multiple currencies, and depending how you want to go about it, the prices can vary. So on the adult block, we've put OneCoin there because it's relatively cheap, relatively affordable, and I would say that's advisable for any brand that doesn't want to be associated with those TLDs. Then you get the DPML, which has been around for a while. It's relatively affordable. The number of domain name extensions have stayed very consistent over the past couple of years. It's kind of a tried and tested blocking service. The global block is very expensive, a lot more than the DPML. Just remember, it does include the DPML. But what happens is the idea behind the global block is over the next couple of years, they're going to be approaching a lot more registries and adding TLDs to the block. So what that means is it's currently covering over 500, but in a year's time, it could be 600, 700, maybe more. So as they're adding these blocks, it's going to become more expensive. So in this particular instance, I would suggest that if you do take out a global block, take it out for a 3-year term, because then you've at least fixed the fee for that 3-year, and on the renewal, it would become more expensive. The global block is currently accepting orders, so it literally started a day ago. They were a bit slow to give the registries the information that we need to communicate it to our clients. And as you can see, it's quite a complex service, and we had to digest it and make sure that we could explain it in a simplified way to clients. But you can apply it. You can apply for a block from today. Obviously, the DPML and the adult one have been around for quite a while. You can also apply for it at a discount during this launch phase, and you can discuss that with us if you want to take advantage of that. It is a minimal one, not too much, but at least it is a saving. And since the global block, as I mentioned before, includes all of the DPML extensions, they're offering a bridging protection. So if you own a DPML block, you can kind of almost upgrade the difference to the DPML. To the global block. So if you have that DPML, you can upgrade it for a certain period of time, and it really depends when your block is expiring. So we'd have to look and see what you have in place and then give you advice on that. So feel free to reach out to us if you do have a DPML in place and are considering upgrading. So how do you verify for domain name blocking? So your rights have to be verified before purchasing a block. So the first step is to submit proof of that. Then what happens is the authority would receive the validation and confirm that you do have rights, and then you would be able to purchase a block for your validated rights. Now for the DPML, you must have a registered trademark. And this is where it's different, and you'll see from the other blocks, is that you need a registered trademark in any jurisdiction. It has to be validated through the Trademark Clearinghouse. So what you would do is you'd give us your trademark registration details, and we would have that mark validated. There are little bits and bobs of additional evidence and one document you have to sign, but we would provide that to the trademark owner in order to get that particular trademark verified. Sorry, Carl, I just saw something pop up that there may be an issue with the Q&A. I don't know if there are any questions that you may want to ask me at this moment. I don't want to keep it too long just in case it is important.
No questions at the moment, Daniel, just for
Okay,
people to ask questions through the chat function, so the Q&A moving forward.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Thank you.
So I will carry on then. So the adult block and the global block accept 4 forms of rights. So where it's slightly different to the DPML one is they accept a celebrity name, they accept a registered trademark as well, they accept company name and an organization name, as well as a common law trademark or an unregistered trademark. So there are various categories, and depending on the category, you have to submit appropriate evidence. So that is where it is very different to the DPML. So technically, if you have a company, a limited company, GmbH, or something like that, you can secure that particular name as well, or a mark that you've just been using for a long period of time, but you don't have a registered trademark. So we've tried to simplify this as easily as possible, so please bear with me. So here, if you have a registered trademark and it's validated through the Trademark Clearinghouse, the Trademark Clearinghouse has a lot of authority. Just remember, if there was a hierarchy, the clearinghouse would be sitting on top. So what that means is once you get a validated mark with the clearinghouse, you can apply for all three blocks. So that is the DPML, that is the global block, and that is the adult block. And there is a fee, obviously, to get your trademark validated. If you don't have a registered trademark, or you want to go through the other variations of a company name or whatever that is, you wouldn't go through the clearinghouse. There's an independent, another rights verification program. And that would only allow you to get the global block and the adult block. Now, you've seen those two arrows that just came about between from the adult block and the DPML. They both point to the global, because what happens is if you have an adult block as well as a DPML block, global block would consider that to be sufficient validation in order to get your global block. Because in order to get those two, you can go through the adult or DPML. It gives you that flexibility at least.
Hi, Daniel. We just had a question
Yes.
on the chat function. Is there a set criteria for your mark to qualify as a common law mark?
No, and that's it is subjective. So it really depends on what supporting evidence you can supply relating to that particular mark. So it's not at the same threshold as if you're proving common law rights before court of law. So if you can show that you've been using the mark, you've been using it consistently in the way that you are filing it, so it is in that form, that should be sufficient. And they could ask for additional information. Sometimes it's a copy of the website, invoices that you've used, or I don't know, media releases, things like that. So there'd be a lot more that you would have to submit. So it would be better to rely on a trademark or a company name, but otherwise it really depends on the evidence that you provide. What we would do is you would send it to us and we'd confirm it before we submit it, so there are no wasted costs. Great.
Great, thank you, Daniel.
So that actually is timed quite well, because that is the last slide that we had. Right, great. I think what you can do is you can reach out to us at info@lexsynergy.com if you have any questions, or you can reach us on LinkedIn if you have any questions, and we can run you through this. We are preparing materials as well as the list of all the TLDs that are covered by the various blocks. So if you want that information, just let us know and we will send that out after this webinar. I'd like to thank you for attending, and we hope to see you on a future webinar. Thanks a lot.